That slow.
Yeah, it was grab.
That was super hot.
Super hot. Super hot.
I got a phone.
You got a phone?
I just shattered.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait. Am I dodging bullets right now?
I think you got shot.
I know you're joining the
What?
Matrix right now, Ryan, but I'm pretty sure we have a podcast.
You don't
buddy.
see the guy in front of me? He
I
just
know,
shot
Yeah.
a bullet.
But
Look,
but
it's coming
still-
right at me
But
right now.
still, we have a lot of things to talk about. Like, I can't. Believe you're like trying to live in the metaverse right now, man. Like, there's a real world around us.
Dude, I just dodged a bullet like
Neo.
Neo. Look at that.
You're like, Neo. Oh man, you're moving so slow. Oh yeah, that's real hard to block.
Yeah.
That's so hard to block.
Come on. This guy is moving, even moving in slow mo. I have to move. Holy shit. Give me that.
Don't punch Jim in the face. Don't punch Jim in the face.
Little Krav Maga there.
Oh man.
Look at
Oh,
that.
yeah, we're recording a podcast, so I didn't
Yeah, I
get
know.
to get off
You
this.
need to
Look at
enjoy
Ninja
real
Stars.
life.
All right, well, welcome to the Think Fresh, Move Forward podcast. We're talking about Web3 and the metaverse, and we're going to talk about the Oculus at the end of this podcast. So,
And we have a special guest
special
today,
guest today.
Jim Doyle,
Hello.
application developer extraordinaire.
Glad to be here. Web3 enthusiast, GPU miner, all the good things.
Love it.
Blockchain James in the house.
Blockchain. James
Blockchain.
Nice. So to put some context to this conversation, because admittedly I am not by any means an expert on Web3
No?
or what the even is, right? What the definition
have you
even
met
is.
James?
Even is.
But here's
had
what
discussions.
just to put some context for laymen out there. Number one, it was what? Web 1.
Web 1,
Web 1 was essentially you could go to websites
and you can't edit anything.
and you could access them, right? And
It's
this is the days of 56K, right?
it's
Where it
purely
took forever
informational.
to-
You
Yeah,
can't.
Netscape. I think Netscape Navigator.
Netscape,
That,
yeah.
that to me is Web.
And even
1.
before that was connecting between colleges, MIT, Harvard. That was like
Yeah.
the
Sure.
true.
DARPA Web.
Well, it was
web.
DARPA.
Yeah.
Sure. Al
Sure.
Gore said he invented the internet. But yeah, Web 1 was there was aspects of no editing, no sharing of ideas like on Wikipedia. Think of that, like where you can go and change
Yeah,
something.
pre-social
One
media,
way.
pre-search engines,
Well,
just basic.
or baby search engine, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves,
Ask
like
Jeeves,
those days.
Alta Vista.
Alta Vista,
Yeah.
and
There
Lycos.
was
we
no
could
no
go
machine
on.
learning, no artificial intelligence. People for searching stuff had to actually plug and chug search queries for things to pop up properly.
CNN
Thousands
would
of
publish
lines.
4 articles a day, all text. You know what I mean? It was
Oh,
just
wow.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you were just consuming one way. It was all static content, and then we got to Web 2, right?
And
We-
the dot-com boom came
inter-
out.
Really, e-commerce. I mean, isn't that the key when we talk about Web 2 e-commerce and social?
So
Right, e-commerce on the front
Amazon,
end, social
eBay,
on
yep.
the back end of that thing.
Well, the first fun fact, like the first, I believe, the first credit card transaction done via online was for porn.
Oh, of course.
It was
Yeah.
there's a whole, they made a whole movie about
always-
it.
always
Yeah, Middleman.
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 Highly recommend watching that movie.
Luke,
Middleman.
Luke Wilson.
Luke
It's
Wilson.
actually pretty good.
Wait, this is
not to hype it too
a
much because
remake?
it's not
Like
critically
it's a Hollywood
acclaimed.
film? Or
It's
is
a
it
Hollywood
Yeah,
film.
film. Yeah.
James Caan, Luke Wilson, and it's all about the story of these guys who basically put imagery up online and
Okay.
Scanning
were
nudie mags.
people just were sending them like checks and cash in the mail, right? And then they were like, "This is getting ridiculous."
Well, they
had
started
bags
doing
and
the
bags full of
900 number lines.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the old 900.
Well,
900s,
and then they
yeah.
eventually came up with the idea of we have to figure out a way to take people's credit cards online. And
My
and then
favorite
that-
part is when he gets in his mode and he's coding and he puts like chimes for different types of purchases being done, and then like one night it just goes off randomly and someone bought something online and then it started going viral and it's like ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
And then the whole
And
world
who
changed.
knows if
Like
it
a You
actually
Got
happened
Mail
that way or
sign?
not, but
Like a You Got Mail
who knows?
sign?
It took some
it's a great movie.
creative license, I'm sure, but it's a great movie.
It's a great
okay.
movie.
What's the
Great
name of
movie.
this film? What's it called?
Middleman.
Middlemen.
Highly
Middlemen.
recommend it.
All right, I will check this out.
Yeah.
Web 1 to 2.
And then
Yeah, as
then
far as
Web 2,
e-com.
and then you have social, right, taking off, and now it's like this environment where we're the content generators.
Well, I would say
right,
even
beyond just-
before social, it was more of the sharing. So you had like LimeWire and Napster and all those
Kazaa.
file
You
and
sharing.
call
all
it sharing,
those.
they'd call it
Yeah.
piracy. We're
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not legal advice.
Metallica would not agree with you, sir. But
Yeah.
go on.
And that whole fiasco. Of,
That's right.
Yes.
Gen,
Yeah,
Gen,
James Hetfield's
still
Gen
mad.
Z's,
Yeah.
Gen Z's discovering Master of Puppets, right? Because of
The
Stranger
days
Things.
of
and
worrying about your downloading the right or the
illegally
wrong
downloading
file.
Metallica songs.
I remember downloading
Getting
using
sued by a band.
using LimeWire back in the day, and having to just wait forever just to wait for all those files to be downloaded.
Oh, I remember to generate one CD worth of content, right? So you're talking like 9 or
The
10
whole
songs.
discography.
Yeah,
You
the-
just had to set it overnight and then hope by the morning it was good. And then you'd wake up like half the time and it didn't download.
It was
right?
a-
30% of a
there
song.
was some
you get
error.
Like a meg and a half of one.
Or you had a
MP3.
virus.
yeah, and then there was Pirate Bay, and then that whole.
Or whole song titles that were just wrong or made up by whoever put it online.
Yeah, but hey, it was free music.
Yeah.
But those are like, I feel like that's still back early. We got e-commerce became big. People got comfortable with that. Social media got huge,
Yeah.
obviously. And like you guys just said, like we're doing now, content creation, right? All of a sudden it went from, we've almost seen decentralization, we'll segue to the Web3 stuff, in the content world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the podcasts. Look at how much we consume versus, I mean, how many hours are you guys watching terrestrial television anymore?
Yeah.
Just putting the TV on and
Yeah,
flipping
TV's a waste of
through.
time.
Yeah.
Right?
90% of TV's just ads now.
And do you even want your corporate media as much as you're listening to like so-called peers?
my
Just
main TV in my
producing
living
your own
room,
stuff?
I don't think I've turned on in like
Cable.
4 months. I don't even have cable
That's what I'm
anymore.
saying.
I think
no
I-
one
but-
watches cable much anymore.
I watch most of my shows though on the laptop, you know,
Yeah.
versus having it on my big screen TV.
Mhm.
Even though I have the whole cool surround sound system, probably should do that more often. I just don't feel like going downstairs to turn the TV. It's just
Right?
easier to access the whatever it is I'm trying to watch online. But most of the videos that or movies that I watch are I don't pay for.
Streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Streaming.
Mm.
Yeah, the idea of paying
anyways.
for
Well-
streaming services, it's now almost more expensive than cable.
Oh, it's crazy.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's gotten out of control.
It
right?
depends on
But-
if you buy them all at the same time. Yeah.
Or you
we
just
did
find
a little
online for
culling
free.
back
Yeah.
of the things because the same thing happened, right? You had your cable package,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of channels. You didn't watch 90-something% of them.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we've gotten to that place now where every stream, you have all these little segments.
Well, now there's
Stack up
companies
10, 12
trying
of
to
them. Are you
bundle
actually
it all together.
watching 10 or 12 at once? And then
Mhm.
how much fresh content is in there? So we've been going through that cycle as well at home, but I think it all evolves to this. It's the data, right? Isn't that really where?
Well, and so my best understanding of the difference between Web 1 and Web 2 and then transitioning to Web 3, right, is Web 2 is where all of this data and information and content is living among a few giants, right? You
Bangs.
have Meta now, right?
But
instead of
we are
Facebook, you
contributing
have-
to that.
Yeah, exactly. We're constantly posting and adding more content. So there's a back and forth relationship, but it's hosted in these centralized areas, right?
And it's back and forth in the sense that you and your friends go back and forth giving data, giving content. I mean,
Yep.
Facebook made, was it 20-something billion last quarter in revenue? What's their model? It's taking your data and selling it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what YouTube is too. We all love it. We watch it all the time, but they know what you watch,
Yep.
as do these streaming services. So I think that, to me, macro level is the biggest transition we're about to see. And we are seeing, like, do you guys use Brave browser at all? Have you
Oh, yeah.
got you into this?
Brave.
Okay, Brave.
Is it like a DuckDuckGo or is it?
Similar, yeah. It's essentially a Chrome clone, but they do a lot of ad blocking, and you get paid in crypto rewards. You get paid in BAT, basic attention tokens. It's not a ton of money. You're not going to get rich browsing in it, but it's like by virtue of doing something you've always done, which is browse online, search for things, you just use this browser, and now that data, your interactions are actually getting rewarded. Your profit sharing.
And then
Okay.
And
Firefox
to
started doing that as well.
me, Yeah, and this to me, I hope, is where we are starting to move when you talk about decentralization and taking that data out of all these central players who fully control it,
Yep.
fully profit off of it. Yes, they give us things of value, but it's ultimately like they've become monsters.
Yeah.
And now when they get
Well,
hacked, what
and-
happens?
Yeah, exactly. And
get
that's
the
where
treasure
my
trove.
biggest concern has always been with like the digital revolution was that these companies, you think about even a company like Microsoft,
Skynet.
right?
Mhm.
Or
Sure.
GE. GE took
Skynet.
took 60
coming.
years to grow into one of the biggest companies in the entire world, and then
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft took like 20 years, right? 10, 20 years. And then Facebook took like 5, right? And so, you think about how
Well,
quickly
There's a
they've-
difference between those models, though, too, because the masses of people that use Microsoft versus
Oh no,
Facebook.
totally.
which
Well,
is
and
because
that's what
why
I
it's
mean.
scaled
That's
so
what I
much
mean.
faster.
These digital giants, right? In less than a decade, have done what companies did to get
Almost
into
a
the top
century.
5. Yeah, the top 5 valuations in the world,
Right.
or top 10 valuations in the world. They've done it like that, and that's a little scary because they also own all the data, right?
Boom. There
So
you go. And it's
yeah.
this opaque, there's frustration, there's concerns about censorship, there's concerns about all these things because why? It's all,
and it's
behind the
bad.
wizard's curtain.
And it's bad when Meta's running ads saying, "Please regulate us, government." Right? We're not regulated. Please regulate us.
That's what they want.
Exactly, because
'Cause
then
then
they
they can-
know there's no more entrants, right? Newer dogs can't really compete with them, and basically they'll get to write the legislation. So
Well, and I think they ultimately want someone else to sort of blame, right? I mean,
Yeah.
all the blowback has been, why aren't you doing more for
Yeah.
XYZ issue?
Yeah.
Well, there's no
No
rules,
legislation,
there's
yep.
no guidance,
Yep.
we
Yeah.
have no. So it's almost like
Wild,
we need
Wild
a
West, there's
buddy
no
to
rules.
share and blame and a
Yeah.
responsibility.
yeah,
But I think to me, where we're going, and I think podcasting again is a really great metaphor. Look what's happened to. Think about it this way: radio, right? Like I was listening to a podcast a bit on the downfall of Howard Stern, and if you remember when he made the jump from terrestrial to satellite, major deal, tons of money, big fancy studio, right? All this stuff. But now fast forward, look at this spot. I mean, we're just here in Henrico, Virginia, with a pretty solid studio.
Yep.
We've seen all these other players.
Keep in mind, this still wasn't cheap as far as
I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's
the
accessible.
barrier to
You
entry
don't
right.
have
is
to
so
be
much
much
lower.
lower.
CBS, NBC, ABC.
Oh, yeah.
Having incredible amounts of resources to get something like this going
Yeah,
and
the
get a
tech,
following.
the tech has the cost of the tech to do it has made it much feasible. Versus, I would say, like 5 years ago, would have been a whole different story. I would probably would have had to hire a professional, and then very, very expensive like software equipment. Like we use OBS, which is a free software.
Yeah.
It's a broadcasting software, and it's phenomenal.
Sure.
It has a few hiccups, but it's one of the best things out there. Obviously, the PC is still expensive, but like turning these cameras into webcams with the simply Camlink from Elgato,
Sure.
which is owned by I forget what company, Corsair, or one of those PC makers. It's $100 versus years ago you had to buy specialized cameras and whole weird setups. It would cost 50, 60, 100
A whole
plus
media,
$1,000.
media
Exactly.
cabinet
From
and
cost
client.
prohibitive to
Yep.
now.
Now you can start a whole podcast for maybe if it's just you and one person and one mic for $100 if you wanted
Seriously,
to.
yeah. Your laptop. I mean, levels of production quality and all that. But it's just to me, it's been amazing to see. Give another example. You guys follow Andrew Schultz at all? This comedian.
I love that guy.
Okay, so I hadn't even heard of him until about 2 years ago, and he basically sounds like he did stand up, but he's built his whole brand on YouTube, and it's like his latest studio, incredible production. They've totally revamped it, but to see that growth, hundreds of millions of views, like the numbers that these guys can
Try to have
do,
the mic.
the numbers that they're doing is just incredible compared to, I mean, even some of your most popular like Comedy Central, cable news, like
Yeah.
their viewership pales in comparison to what's happening. So
Yeah, he
what is it?
took-
It's decentralization.
Well, he took his
It's the
content.
people. Go ahead.
Andrew Schultz, he became a more famous comedian because he took his stand-up bits, not the whole segment, not his hour-long,
the
special or whatever. You take, a 3-minute clip of him roasting a heckler, and those are hilarious.
They're awesome. His
That
crowd
guy
work's
knows
great.
how to
His
handle
crowd
a
work is
crowd.
great.
He's one of the best people at it. And that, I think he had one clip that went viral that got over 1 million views, and then he kept posting and posting. I think he was one of the first comedians to really focus on the small segment of consuming content, and then he's blown up, and then now he's up there with the big dogs. Yeah.
Massive. Yeah, claimed to just
And he has a big page, the podcast Flagrant too.
yeah, they get great guests. He just sold a new special. But my point is that like this model of the individual kind of taking control, so to speak, and putting out their own stuff, this is what's resonating. This is what's growing. And I think in hey,
I know you're not used to it.
Talk to James.
It's a learning curve.
I know you're not used to it.
I'm gonna need to laugh or something.
Learning curve.
So I just feel like that's where we're going in
So
this.
is that what you define Web3 as?
Well, to me, so great question. In my opinion, I'd be curious to hear you guys' opinions as well. Web3 is now the next evolution of taking that centralized data and decentralizing it. and it couples with.
Can you explain that in layman's terms? So there's someone who's watching who has absolutely no idea.
So like great, yeah, absolutely. So right now, let's use Facebook as an example, and Cody knows this well because he's run servers. What is Facebook? It's a website, okay?
Yep.
But what is the website made of? It's a whole bunch of data, all of our profiles, all the sharing, all the videos, everything we've ever put on there, photos, blah, 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 right? Where does that stuff actually live? Well, it lives probably somewhere in Northern Virginia in a big old room with a bunch of servers, and Amazon or
Connected to the CIA.
Facebook, yeah, might be some government folks in there, but it's basically one of these companies owns all those servers. They hire people to make sure they run and they do what they're supposed to do, but it's all theirs. It's all centralized. Versus in a Web3 world, anyone with a device, right? Anyone that wants to contribute to a blockchain network, whether you have one hard drive and one computer or you've got racks and rooms full of servers, you can contribute those resources. You get rewarded for them in the form of cryptocurrency, so getting paid for that work. And you're effectively keeping that network up and giving everyone access to the data. That's really the big key difference is right now you can't, if you want your Facebook data, could you even get it? You'd have to go through all sorts of permissions, developer steps, blah, blah. It
your
would
data.
still be limited at
Could
the
you
end
even
of the
ask
day.
them to delete it? And if that's even, and if they do it, is it actually truly
Well, there's
deleted?
federal law for that.
And, but all those things.
Yeah, but is Facebook actually going to
exactly,
take your
the
request
the
online?
layers, put it this way, you have to trust that
Oh, of
they're
course.
all doing the right
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And I think we live in a world today.
I don't trust Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's important, right?
Okay.
And trust is at a
And of course, it's like once
minimum.
it's sold, it's no longer. So it's like back to the, getting my data and deleting my data. If it's sold, even though I delete my profile and I downloaded all my, because I did that. I actually had a Facebook profile a long time ago, and I just like did a crazy ton of shit. I had a bunch of people for absolutely no reason, just because I was drunk one night. Anyways, so I was like, okay, this is a pointless profile. Let me delete it. Let me download all my photos and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of data from that. You can actually, before it asks you to delete, it's like, you want to download all your stuff. You're like,
Yeah,
yes,
back
it's every single post, every single comment, all your metadata from
Every
all
time
your
you've been
photos.
tagged, it's an intricate web, right?
everything.
Yeah.
You wanna
Oh yeah, it's everything.
Google has another thing. If you have Google on your phone, you can actually log into your Google account and then open up Maps, and then you can actually see history, and you can see the lines of where you've traveled since the start of it. You tracking it is creepy.
super freaky. And I mean, part of that's just, hey, the nature of technology. That tracking exists, that data exists. Someone's going to be capturing it. But
How much are you okay with? That's
well,
the big
okay
question.
with it. How much you're aware of?
Oh,
right?
that
Do you
too.
even know
Yeah.
what's
Who
happening
reads the
to your
privacy
data?
policies? No one reads the privacy policies.
And they
there's
can
a
all change
website
like
for that, too.
this.
Yeah.
But
There's actually a website. I don't remember the name of it, but you can actually look at it, and it's like it rates the privacy policies and the terms and conditions of like how they're collecting your data. And like Facebook's rated F.
sure.
They collect so much data.
Oh,
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it, right? Say you're not happy with a privacy policy. What's your recourse?
You can't use it.
Don't use it.
Like, Don't use it. That's
It's
the biggest
A or
thing.
B. It's
Yep.
just turn it off. And I think that's kind of the crux of where we're at is like, are we all going to just walk away from these centralized utilities? Some of us have built businesses on them, right? It's not even that easy to do. So I think we're seeing this transition, and that's sort of what all this competition for these new Web3 projects is to who's going to become that new layer? Who's going to become that new infrastructure piece to where you can have faith in your data, where it is all shared. We have, maybe it's one or more cryptos that become sort of the currency for these different programs and protocols. We're in it right now. I mean, it's happening. It's evolving before our eyes. And so that to me is it. It's the nature of the data going from being held by big corporations to be accessible and held by basically everybody in a Web3 world.
There's no true definition yet on what Web3 is. Now, the metaverse, which I guess you could say coincides with Web3, but even though the whole idea of VR has been already in existence for a long time, but it's, I would say, the change in mass user adoption. This obviously the Quest has made it a bit easier to access and more cost effective because VR type stuff years and years ago it probably cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now it's getting much more cheaper. Actually, I think back in the 90s there was a company that made like a VR headset, and it was mostly just like it had like one color. It was like red lights and lines. I forget the name of that.
Well, Nintendo tried it with the.
I think it's that.
What was the? You looked into it. I forget the name of it.
It hurt.
Nintendo,
It killed your eyes, man.
Yeah, it was red and black.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it either. It wasn't a big hit, obviously.
No, because it probably screw
But to
your
your
eyeballs.
point,
but
metaverse, isn't it? To me, it's the layering of a VR world, which has existed, but attaching it to a blockchain environment.
Right. It's just who.
To where all the transactions are recorded, everything is publicly available in terms of visibility to see what's going on.
Well, and how is that different than Mark Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse, right? Because Facebook's investing massively into the metaverse.
What someone doesn't know, for the people listening who don't know what the metaverse is, and it's still a broad definition, I would say I'll always give this explanation of what I would say I think the end goal is. And if you haven't seen the movie Ready Player One,
it's awesome.
Which I highly recommend.
Better book.
Because, it's a better book. And actually, fun fact, when I did like 2 podcasts ago, as far as not Think Fresh Move Forward podcast, but one of the first podcasts that I ever launched, I think it was called The Entrepreneurial Grind. We did a podcast with Jay Papasan. He's a New York Times bestseller. He wrote the book The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, The Millionaire Real Estate Investor,
The One Thing.
The One Thing. And a lot of those books he co-authored with Gary Keller. And Gary Keller, he owns Keller Williams, multi-millionaire. He said the best business book he ever read, or as far as it has business principles, is Ready Player One, the book.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I haven't read the book.
I'm gonna have to go back.
I'm gonna have to go back and read.
I didn't get a lot of business lessons from it. But
I guess there were certain, philosophies. He said that, and the guy has written a ton of great New York Times bestsellers. So, but that movie, I would say is the goal. If you think of as what the metaverse is, just an alternate reality that someone.
And that's the thing, because I feel like those goals are at odds with what Web 2 is, right? And so why would the big players, and what's their angle here?
So
right?
my guess, I'm not Zuckerberg, I'm not in those meetings, I don't know. I think you have to parse it out this way, James. So when we say the metaverse, I think there's kind of 2 ways to apply that term. One is specifically Facebook, Meta, their metaverse, the virtual world they're trying to create, which my understanding is they're literally digitizing the entire globe and want to basically recreate.
People are buying digital real estate right now.
But that's
so
to
dumb
my
right
mind,
now.
that's still Facebook's centralized control over.
So it's still their ecosystem.
Yeah, like I'm assuming they think of it as the metaverse just means like like it's ours. It's where all the stuff happens. But in reality, I mean, there's Second Life has been around forever, which is a virtual world. I don't think there's a blockchain play in it yet, or there wasn't back in the day. But there's competing virtual worlds. Like anyone could create a virtual environment and sell things in it and all that. So I guess one of the questions, James, is when you say metaverse, are you talking Facebook's metaverse, or are we talking potential other metaverses that others could create, just like others can create podcasts or whatever else in this world,
and
right?
I guess them being an early entrant into this means that they can dictate a lot of the conversation on it, right?
So I think they would want to replicate what they did with Facebook. We were the first and biggest social platform. We hoovered up all your data.
Yeah.
We bought up Instagram and all these.
They want to make it so it's like everyone's already on this, so why would you be on some other?
If you're going to get this device and hop on the metaverse, you're obviously coming to Metas, right? Why would you go to any other metaverse? I assume that's their mentality.
And then Microsoft, I understand what Facebook is doing with the Meta, but I think Microsoft is a little bit ahead of them, even though you may have
gaming, right?
In the gaming aspect. And most of the stuff is gamified anyways to get mass user adoption. But especially if it's the whole aspect to be like Ready Player One. Microsoft acquired Activision, or started the whole process last year, and it's the largest business deal ever. I think it was like $71 billion
only.
And you think about they just bought a gaming company that has Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, and a bunch of other games. But you're like, that's it? Why? No, they're buying IP. And when you can mix all those characters that people have loved to enjoy for the past 20 some odd years, and then you could play that character or be that character in the metaverse, when you own that IP, that's just going to make you, if you start your own, because Facebook could never allow you to be Master Chief in the metaverse because they don't own the rights to that.
Yeah,
Microsoft does. Again, if you think about Ready Player One, everyone's on their own characters, their own skins.
The DeLorean.
Microsoft owns it now. And that was a hell of a smart
Paramount
purchase.
would come in and be like, "You can't have that DeLorean. Did you pay us royalties?"
So watch that movie again.
You're not even signed up for Paramount Plus.
It's crazy how many characters and how many skins were in that war scene.
Right
at the end, just how
much
many movies you saw.
The amount of nostalgia in that one scene. Like you had Chucky, you had the Iron Giant, you had Ninja Turtles, you had
Star Wars was in there. Imagine that
you
price
saw royalties and IP beefs.
Oh
that's all infringement issues.
You got to be careful though, because Ready Player One at the end of the day was a dystopian book. Like
Right.
people were so
super dystopian. Yeah.
they were just so consumed by it, and they didn't do anything in
Well,
the
life
real
was
world, so.
miserable and
Oh, sure, yeah.
you know
like,
sucks. So you have to have this
Of course.
secondary life.
Escapism.
yeah, escapism.
Well-
but we got to be careful with that.
Yeah, totally. So, one of the things that is kind of framing my expectations of the metaverse is totally Zuckerberg and Facebook, right? Or Meta, right? Because of he did that 90-minute live that
Oh,
he
this is
did.
the
Was that
creepiest
last
thing
year,
ever.
right?
Yeah.
I didn't watch this.
Yeah, so they promoted it like crazy.
You want to be
and then it
creeped
was-
out? Watch
For
it.
a while on
pretty- okay.
Facebook, it was
No,
like
it's,
being
he's
shared.
just creepy.
Yeah.
That's it. That-
He's
it's
he's
that-
he's the alien of the lizard people. Let's be real.
But one of the things that he talks about on it is like it's him walking through this, obviously
Lavish.
virtual environment, right?
Mhm.
And the idea of people working through this, playing games through this, right? Socializing
Total
through
Black
this,
Mirror
all
vibes.
all in a virtual world, right? And so I think what's kind of interesting in hearing your perspective is it's almost like, yes, technologically, Meta's vision of the metaverse moves us forward, right?
It's only
Like
one
in our
aspect.
experiences.
Mhm.
But what you're describing is it almost keeps us in Web 2 because it's not about decentralization.
Yeah, boom, you nailed it, James. I think that is the key. That is the key phrase. That is the litmus test, if you will, of is a project Web 2 versus Web 3. Is the data decentralized, meaning it's on a blockchain with accessibility to all, and it's therefore visible and accessible to other people, versus a metaverse where one company controls what IP and all the stuff that's allowed in, where they own the data, where they can monetize that data solely, they could sell your data, all that stuff. To me, it's not. I don't think of Web3 as this virtual world. I think that is a technology and kind of just a different play in the digital space.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I think of Web3 truly as decentralization and keys. I think this is the other thing that's come to mind as we've been talking. Taking it back through, Web 1 was read only, right? I log onto a website or I do a minimal search and I get some content that I can basically read. We didn't really have video and all that. Web 2, we talked about interactivity, being able to buy stuff, social accounts. What does that mean? Usernames and passwords. We've all gotten super used to and probably fed up with the amount of usernames and passwords. But that wasn't a Web 1 thing. You didn't log on to stuff. You just went to a website and things were there.
Yep.
Now you can log in. There's data tracking. I think Web 3 and the next big thing we're all going to get used to is keys. Public-private keys, having cryptographic keys, protecting those keys, understanding a hot wallet versus a cold wallet. Is my key, have I left it on the cloud for it to be stolen by someone, or do I have it in a secure place where only I get access to it? What's my backup plan? I think that's another, no pun intended, key to Web3.
with Web3, that gives the individual more control over their
Yes.
personal security.
100%.
Right, because right now on
Yes.
Facebook, and this is something that we've even had clients have challenges with, right, where their personal email got hacked and therefore their Facebook got hacked. And the problem with a business owner's Facebook getting hacked is it's so much worse than an individual's Facebook getting hacked.
Sure,
Because the crazy thing that a lot of people don't know is the way Facebook structured their back-end business manager experience, or Meta now, is that everything's run through individual people. So if a business owner, right, has a business and they have it on that, because they have a business on Facebook, they have a business page, they have an ad account, they have pixels and data tracking, and all of that is connected to a credit card on their business manager account.
Yep.
And guess what has access to all of these things? The individual business owners as a super admin on the account.
Right.
They own
And
all of
any
it.
other company you manage.
Yeah, and all of the people, right? And the individual business owner a lot of times doesn't know this, so that means that if they don't have two-step verification on their Facebook account, or even if their email gets hacked and they did have two-step, right, they can still have their information hacked, and then all of a sudden, and this happened to one of our clients, they're running ads in another country on your credit card, right?
Right, yeah. What are
Driving
the
there,
charges?
yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah,
What's the
and so what you're saying is out in Web3, right, beyond just two-step verification, right, there's ways to...
Yeah, I mean, the key, we're going to, to my mind, we are going to get away from this world of usernames and passwords, and it's going to be about you managing digital keys the way you manage your physical keys to get into your home or your vehicle. Right?
You
It's
already
something
kind of
you're
do
always
that with
cognizant of.
servers. You have a public and a private key.
You
right?
do as a
So-
server guy.
Right.
I'm saying, and I do as a web guy. I think the general public is going to start
It's
Like
just
that,
it
this
has
is the
to be
next
easy
step.
though.
Yes,
It has to be more
100%. And
digestible,
we're waiting
definitely.
on the UI and who's going to bubble up as the best player and the best way to manage that stuff because it's
So-
the same thing can't
Let
happen
me
in
take
Web3
let me take your
world, right?
ETH
I get your
address
private
down
key.
to buy a pizza. 004F54455674.
Yeah,
Like,
no one's going to use that.
No one's gonna use that.
A few nerds might, but
Sure. And do currently in the
Oh,
world.
yeah.
They're
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
be
Like the
Definitely.
guy
mad
who
when
used
these
Bitcoin to buy the pizza all those years
But-
lames
ago.
coming and use my keys.
So more on the keys in the aspect of decentralization is Bitcoin has given so much power to the end users. So back to from our last podcast on doing wire transfers overseas, we have to go to the Treasury, and then the Treasury has to release your funds. to China.
yeah, the Federal Reserve.
the bank,
Federal
the
Reserve,
bank
thank
sends
you.
the Federal
Yeah, yeah.
Reserve. Federal Reserve
So-
approves it, and then they send it.
You don't have to do that. It goes, I want to send money to Ryan, and Ryan's in China. He's a Chinese employee somewhere. I just go, here you go. There's no intermediary.
If I get that
Yeah.
much
And
Bitcoin
there-
in China, I
like-
better
and
run.
More importantly, there's no lag and there's no one reaching in your pocket.
No one's looking
I've read
at what you're
numbers.
doing.
Western Union
Yeah.
for remittances that go back to Central and South America. Western Union's getting like 50 to 20% of that stuff. You're talking tens of billions of dollars a
And
year.
it's
I mean,
like,
that's
why
a
am I giving?
huge? And you having those extra hassles, having to deal
Well,
with them.
You
versus
control the
being able to send
you
directly.
control the currency. You control the people. So that's why governments
Unfortunately.
don't like crypto.
Correct. Yeah. Well, they have been.
It's
That's
a
the
direct
yes.
attack on as far as some of these not cryptos. Some of them are not, but like Bitcoin to be exact is almost an attack on. They think they see it as an attack against
100%.
the US
I mean,
dollar.
it was released in 2008 for a reason after
Mhm.
a massive financial crash where
Yeah.
central banks started printing money to an obscene amount and are still doing it today. So I get that. I mean, I totally. But I think for me, where I get more excited, and Ryan, we've talked about this a lot. Bitcoin was just the beginning, right?
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
Bitcoin, you could argue, is the 1.0 of blockchain, and we've had so many more evolutions. And
That's
more
just the
evolutions to
financial
come.
sector, right?
Correct.
Like that is just the bank to and from
So-
people to transfer
Simple.
funds.
Here's we've gone over a lot of technical type stuff here,
Mhm.
but the main question, and usually when this type of topic conversation happens with someone who's never heard about it,
Mhm.
their eyes just glaze
We're
right
already
over.
gone. We lost people.
Well, it's that, but it's like, how does this affect me, and how can I use this, or what do I need to do now to get ready? So that question is what can a business owner do now, or what they need to do to essentially get ready for Web3? What is it that because it's all speculative. I mean, it's
yeah.
RTFM.
You're right. It's tough to say because right now, what will we say? Coinbase is probably the easiest tool for the average person that wants to get into, let's just say, crypto to start. Coinbase is probably the go-to app, right? I mean,
Yeah.
any app, or do you guys use Binance or?
No.
I would not
I think
recommend using
Crypto.com
Binance.
Binance.
app stinks, but that's the base. That's like as a business owner, if I want to. But even still, you don't have your own keys in that world. You're just using an app.
So I would say very first step is read RTFM. Read the docs, man.
Yeah, but
if
no.
you
but,
want
but to his point,
Again, you're gonna lose
non-technical
a
person
lot of people.
doesn't
Well,
wanna
I mean,
do
I understand that, but you as a
Doesn't
business
wanna do
owner,
that.
you had to again back to where you were going with. Oh, how do I make a product? Okay, who do I need to contact? What do I need to do? You had to read. You had to know what
Right.
you were building, and you
Right,
had to
but-
understand what you're getting yourself into.
But what Web3 is this fundamental change to how people interact and do things with each other. It's on more of on a massive level that affects everyone over time versus just me wanting to learn how to do a product. But that was just early
sure.
starting
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you want to learn when we talked about how to make a product overseas, you watch our podcast,
Right.
or the tens of thousands of other videos on YouTube that are talking about how to source product from China.
Yeah.
Which one is correct? That comes to you and trial and error more than anything. But even right now, if you type in what is Web3,
I get thousands.
Nobody
you get-
has clear
No,
definitions.
yeah.
on it.
they're
Yeah,
all
there's so many
massive
different ones,
different.
definitely.
There's some dude selling some BS NFT project on most of those videos, or some BS crypto or ICO or whatever. And then you have people selling courses, and this is how. Like, I think I saw one video, one guy who's selling like a Web3 course and how to use it for your business. I'm like,
Yeah, that's
you're full of
might,
shit.
Might be early.
Let-
Well,
let me-
that's
let
why-
me
that's
argue
why
this.
I keep saying those white papers, right?
Well,
Things that have been studied. and
sure.
like,
Let me argue this
depends
though, right? I think probably the starting place for most people listening would be to fully understand Web 2, right? And understand how their data currently is being used, because that is
And that's
affecting their
still a
day to
big- that's
day
still a big
and
ask.
affecting their business way more than whatever
How many
Web
people
3 is
still use the
eventually
same password for
speculative.
everything?
Right,
gonna
there are
be,
a lot of
right?
business owners that we even still run into today that are not even really utilizing the web as it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
So-
I would say the easiest industry to talk about is contractors.
sure.
they're the worst user of, I would say, Web 2 or not.
They're not in it.
From the adoption standpoint.
Yeah.
Like an electrician or a plumber, they have
your
a
trades.
website. Yeah, your tradespeople. Say they may have a website. They may, or they don't have a website because they don't feel I don't need it. And COVID, I would say at the start of 2020, escalated as far as the need of pushing them into getting into a website. Because then when you can't go out about and talk with people, how else do people find you? Digitally. So we thought we were kind of screwed at first. We were like, we had no idea what was going to happen. We thought we were going to lose all our clients. And we had a huge influx of work because people needed more presence online and had to get online or even had to start marketing and spend money on Facebook to do Google ads or whatever. It was a necessity. You had to, essentially, to survive. Now, all that stuff has essentially gone away, but nowadays you still need a presence, and we're still growing, but we're still running into people all the time that have a website or it was built 5 years ago, and it looks like they're out of business because it's so
It's so stale.
Well, yeah, totally. And that's what I mean, right? I think Web 2, there still needs to be a better understanding of Web 2. And then I think when you have a better understanding of Web 2, it then starts to help you see where Web 3 can come into play. But honestly, for most people, in my opinion, Cody, like they're not ever going to become experts on what Web 3 would be. But these early startups, right, there's a lot of money that's being funded to anything that just includes the words blockchain in the startup are like now like there's money flooding towards these, right?
It's a buzzword that's overused a lot.
But what I will say is those early adopters, right, are going to create the basis, in my opinion, of what makes it easy for the masses, right? So you just mentioned one problem where a new blockchain startup could have a space, which is just keys, right? Just making keys palatable for everybody, right?
How to create, how to manage, how to store.
How do you get the advantages of security with keys, but then how do you get the convenience that you currently have, right?
Someone solves that problem, you're going to see more.
Then
that's my job in a nutshell.
And I think I would jump
convenience
here too,
and security.
James, talking about business owners. Business owners think about the bottom line, right? You think about profits, you thinking about costs versus revenue. This new crypto world, which I realize is still volatile and we're not all fully comfortable with, but as it matures, the hope is that you're going to switch your payment solutions to, if not accepting crypto, there may be some type of crypto exchange involved to where you're not paying 3% of every transaction to a
credit card
processor,
MasterCard,
or merchant processor,
so
right?
You
talk to any retail business, you guys know
that's
this on the
a
website.
massive difference.
That's huge. That's that is serious money coming back into your pocket if we can get.
Yeah, there are a lot of central banks, not in the U.S. yet, but overseas that are starting to utilize crypto for sending transactions. They're using the Stellar network, XLM, I mentioned years ago.
Ripples.
And because it's faster and the fee is almost free for them to send money. Yeah. And the price of Stellar is not as volatile. It's not like it's not like Bitcoin where one day it's 24K and the next day it's 18,000. Stellar tends to stay fairly stagnant.
Not as crazy.
It's not a stable coin, and we know that whole fiasco with that aspect. I'm not a fan of stable coins, but XLM I think is around 12 cents, but it usually may go up a penny or down or two. But even then, I would say the cost to send something like for me to send something to you via Stellar, by the time you get it, the price is more likely still exactly the same. Yeah. And the fee to send it is literally basically free. Yeah. Versus
fractions of a penny.
When you do a wire transfer. Or using like Western Union where you're paying 10-20%, finance is the easiest way to explain this whole thing. So you will start to see a lot more. I think the price of Stellar is going to go up if the United States government hopped onto Stellar for wire transactions. And back in 2021 in December, there was a congressional meeting on crypto, and the only coin that was invited to speak, because Bitcoin doesn't have a face.
Sure.
The only coin that was invited to speak, I mean, there was a few exchanges and one crypto, and that was Stellar. The only one out of the thousands that are out there, that was the only one, because they're not focused on trying to get spending. Most of these cryptos, when they start, they spend a ton of money on marketing to get a lot of.
Get the
Stellar hasn't spent a single dime yet, so. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, so you do what you want when it comes to buying Stellar.
This is not financial
I do
advice.
personally own a ton of Stellar, and have been for a while, and I think I've pretty much hit where I want to go.
I think I own like $75 with Stellar.
I think
Nice.
Per your recommendation.
I told him
Yeah.
I told him to buy it, and he hasn't bought it anymore.
Well, I own a bunch of other things, but it's only like $500 worth of crypto.
That's
Well,
fine. Hey,
well, it was
you're in the
$500
game.
at the
You're-
time. It's
you're
probably-
in the game.
It's
I
probably-
appreciate it.
We're all gonna be billionaires by the end of .com boom.
This afternoon.
Yeah.
Well,
I still think that EFT that or ETF that tracks the S&P 500 over the course of 20 years is probably a better investment. But I understand.
We'll see.
Well,
But
Mark your
I
words
understand-
today.
I
and talk to you in
understand.
2042.
Hey,
Yeah.
I get the
early adopters to
upside.
the early
I get the
adopters to
upside.
Bitcoin would highly disagree with you.
Yeah, well, I get the
and
upside.
Let's stay
it's
on
there,
that, right? Because what have we seen on the internet? I mean, it wasn't 25 years ago. Practically no one knew what the internet was. Today, most of us cannot live without it. I mean,
Yes,
truly,
true.
like the
Born
world
into
doesn't
it.
exist.
This business,
we're
this
the
business
last-
does not exist without it.
We're the last generation to know what it's like to not
Yeah, I've
have
lived-
high speed internet.
They
Dial
like
up.
to live in a world before you were connected. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's, I don't know that blockchain will be as transformative because the visual layer, like the interactive layer, stays the same, but the way the data, the access, and just the nature of how all these transactions change, I think.
And the application too is
really-
just endless.
really big. Well, yeah, one more I wanted to throw out just to make these real, to make some of these things real. We talked earlier about Amazon centralization, having those centralized servers. There's a great project called Flux that is a decentralized Amazon, right? So they offer hosting in a way that instead of your site being on one server in one room somewhere in Northern Virginia, it's actually hosted kind of in a shared environment across all these different nodes. The costs, so we got a website, just quoted, to host on Flux, basic React front end, like nothing crazy, simple website, 4 cents per month. Zero,
Wow.
Like the quote back from Flux when we put the image in and said, hey, we need to host this, 0.04 cents per month for hosting. So that's a baby, tiny little
is there no-
React website. Imagine that at a scale of a much bigger business that has a lot more resources to host. I mean, again, I would love to do this analysis for somebody, but you're probably going to save incredible amounts of money as these options.
The reason why it's
Yeah.
so cheap is because Flux has
There's no overhead.
there's no overhead as a company or as a coin versus Amazon spending millions of, if not billions of dollars in
hardware.
infrastructure costs.
Yeah.
So this PC mines Flux when it's not being operated.
Well,
there's a
so
3080 in
here's
there.
my confusion on that,
Mhm.
right? Then what you're saying is Flux is using other providers' infrastructure.
12,000 plus nodes
Right,
now,
so
computers
so
like that,
so
all
really
around
they're
the
just
globe.
piggybacking off of Amazon's infrastructure for Amazon Web Services,
that's
right?
Not exactly. So don't confuse connectivity, which is part of AWS, is actually providing actually routing traffic, right? Like truly the pipes that take us from server to server, cloud to cloud. But you're hosting the data, the website, the data lives not on just that machine, but copies of it live on thousands of machines in the Flux network. And so there is no one chokehold. There's no one.
So
place
so
to take it
signing
down.
up for Flux essentially means that you're donating part of your not your bandwidth, right, but your storage, right?
Yeah, you're going to leverage.
Well,
you're gonna,
if you want to use it as a business, you don't have to have a node or whatever yourself. You simply just sign up and pay for hosting.
So you have a certain
we-
number of generous people that have decided to be a node. Is that what
Yes.
you're
But they get-
describing?
they
but here's why.
paid.
Boom, and let's talk
Right.
more Web3.
Yeah,
I run a Flux node as well. I just
Sure.
set it up last month.
Because I understand the beginnings of like BitTorrent. I vaguely understand that people there are generous people out there that are serving as like
Because
the
they're getting stuff, and then they just want to share.
And they're
with people.
sharing stuff,
Here's where a Web3 world, from a business perspective, makes a lot more sense. There's an incentive there. I'm not committing my machine. I have a desktop like that runs my Flux node in my garage. Terabyte of hard drive space, 16 gig RAM, whatever. It's a decent machine. I'm not giving that up just out of the goodness of my heart. I'm getting paid a reward. If my node stays online every 10 and a half days, it's maintained its uptime, I get paid in Flux. I get paid a reward. And if I scale up my machine, I get paid even more rewards. So there's an incentive there. This to me is the dramatic transformation between our current Web 2 world and our Web 3 world. You, all of us, can get paid a dividend for the work that we put in, whether you're just contributing content, whether you're contributing hardware and machines, whether you're building mining rigs, like whatever way you're getting involved in this ecosystem, ultimately there should be some shared reward there.
Yeah.
Where right now we don't get that.
Yeah.
You contribute your content. The reward is, oh, I can talk to my buddies and consume content. That's great. We all appreciate that value. Nothing wrong with that. But there's no monetary piece at all.
Yeah, because
money flows one way.
AWS put all the infrastructure in, and so they're reaping all the rewards, and we're getting nothing for just being on it, right?
And in this Web3 world, all these different projects, you want to contribute something, again, hardware, software, whatever.
Yep.
You're getting paid for that. This to me is a beautiful world. It really, not to get totally utopian, but this kind of mingling of capitalism and democracy in Web3 is a really attractive thing in my mind for competition and growth and shared reward.
Well, then one more just functional question on that. You serve as a Flux node. If you turn
Flux node operator.
There you go. So if you turn your machine off, there's backups of whatever data was on there on different people's machines.
This is another thing. And I'll preach on Flux a little bit. Yes, with a basic Flux node, there is no lockup period. So my machine's on. As long as it's on, and I'm doing confirmations, right? Sharing, and this is all happening automatically, just by virtue of it being on running the software. If it goes offline, that point goes away. But there's 12,500 others. Now, if every single one of them went down,
well, we have a lot more other bigger problems if everyone's electricity internet went down.
But my point is there's redundancy, right?
Exactly, 100%. And that's whenever you talk about blockchain, right? And no matter what the blockchain project is, redundancy is baked into the cake. It's not one database.
Okay.
It's one living database that everyone can get copies of. Anyone can chime in at any point. And copy it. So where you can't do that. Like you can't just go to Facebook right now and get a full copy of all the data that's ever been there.
Yeah.
It's not possible. They don't want to do that.
And it's also encrypted. And it's not like you see everything, right? So like there's also a misconception.
Permission, there's layers, there's metadata.
So it's public, but it's still private. So it's anonymous
you should
in a
say
way.
Protected. The ledger is all out there for everyone to see. Whether or not your keys have the right permissions will give you that depth, right? Because if we put all our health records on blockchain, which I hope we do someday, I shouldn't be able to go to James's personal history. Like, you haven't given me that permission. If you do, because I'm a medical provider, then absolutely I'd get access
Versus
to
right now, my medical file is just sitting in some storage room somewhere.
Worse than that, it's
in a manila folder.
That anyone can look
everywhere.
at.
I just went to the dentist the other day and had to fill out the same friggin' name, address, birth date, my allergies. Like, I've done this for every medical provider I've ever
every
gone to.
urgent care place you've ever been, it exists somewhere.
And it was less than 6 months ago. I got asked to fax something between A to B.
The amount of money that's wasted.
How is this the world we live in 2022 when we have Metaverse and we still have faxing medical records? So there's so many applications where we can,
especially in the medical. If you think about it in the medical aspect, the vast majority of cost in hospitals, as far as where salaries and payroll goes to, it's not the staff. As far as it's all admin.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can be poofed to the side by implementing this new stuff, because it's just
100%.
someone typing, bullshit that you just filled out.
Documentation, HIPAA compliance.
We have digital
yada,
tools
yada.
that doctors use. They could be recording transactions to a blockchain, which could automatically be writing certain
So do
information to
you
your
think
health
it's,
records.
like an industry like healthcare, right, could potentially skip Web 2 because most of them aren't even in Web 2, right?
Yeah.
So essentially skip Web 2 and go right to Web 3.
In my mind, they hopefully already are and absolutely have to. Like, Web 2, when you talk about healthcare, and this is probably a whole nother podcast, it simply doesn't work. This country, especially in this country, you have dozens, if not thousands, of individual health systems. They do not want to share.
Insurance agencies.
They do not want to play nice. They want it just like
and from an
Facebook
individual
wants to keep you in their
perspective,
metaverse.
there's no advertised rates, right? You have no idea what you're going to spend. I remember going to get a particular drug I was prescribed for one of my conditions, and literally I went up to the register at Walgreens, had no idea what I was going to pay, and it was $4,000.
Yeah, and you're just
like,
I'm supposed to swipe
if it's covered,
right?
If it's covered by insurance, there's no pricing. If it's not covered by insurance, so like LASIK eye surgery, that's a competitive. It's not covered by insurance. So yes, getting the pricing is very effective.
True. But
and the pricing has gone down because of competition.
Yeah, but dude, even things that are covered, quote unquote, covered by insurance, right? The reality is, if you get an X-ray, right, and the doctor doesn't tell you in that certain circumstance how much that X-ray is going to cost, right? If they're doing it as a precautionary thing, you might want to consider, I don't know if I want to do this or not, because even if I have a copay.
That's my whole point, is that when insurance is involved, you will never really know the price until the bill
That's
comes.
the problem.
Versus
Yes.
you get the government insurance out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, private insurance too does the same thing, but I
still,
understand.
when you take like LASIK or sometimes even braces are even covered by insurance. Sometimes they are, depending. Or getting veneers done or any of that type of stuff to change your
elective surgery.
Elective surgery never usually, or plastic surgery not covered by insurance. But you can walk in, you can ask for a price right then and there.
Oh yeah.
And the pricing of that processes have gone down dramatically over the years because of competition.
Yeah.
When competition is involved, pricing goes down.
That's a great point.
And more than,
That's just the whole,
just
you know,
competition,
podcast.
and I have a very relevant story to this, avoiding the entire insurance debacle altogether.
Yeah, insurance
So
is
when I went to get my
scam.
tooth fixed, we have dental insurance.
Yeah.
Long story short, it was going to be, they were giving me a $550 discount if I just simply paid out of pocket to avoid the back and forth nonsense. Like legitimately, out of the same procedure, if I was willing to just pay directly, which I did, there's a discount item, $550. Otherwise, with insurance, it would have been like $2,200 or something. And I think either way, out of pocket, I was going to pay the same, but they were giving me a premium discount to avoid having to deal with that madness.
Wow.
And that to me is really, that was the moment of like, oh yeah, this is a bad situation. When you're trying to, you don't want anyone to have insurance. You want us to pay out of pocket because that nightmare, labyrinthine, the amount of time and back and forth.
Big pharma.
And so this is where, in a Web3 blockchain-enabled world where you have interoperable databases where all this stuff can be shared, again, it sounds utopian, but you can cut out so much of it.
Well, you can probably just have a
so
blockchain that's
much
privatized. Doesn't necessarily have to be public.
Sure, there's all sorts of public and private uses for them, but the idea being the data is out there as a ledger, permissioned or permissionless, meaning with keys, and that it's shareable. It's not, we all have our own little caves and little places where we tuck stuff away, and if you want it, you got to come ask mom or dad, and maybe we give it to you, maybe we don't. Like we've got to get out of the siloed world, I think, to help solve some of
There's another project, and you have heard about it, and you've heard about it, me talk about it. There's the Helium. So you have proof of work, which is mining. You have proof of stake, which is BS, and then you have
Staking, I think.
and then you have
Has a
proof. It has a use. Then you have proof of coverage, which is what Helium does, and they're trying to essentially build a decentralized internet. So essentially a decentralized ISP. Right
if
now,
you pulled up their map right now, it's really impressive.
But it's all lo-fi right now, and it's all piggybacking off your current internet access. So again, you still kind of have to have that. But now they've rolling out this new thing with 5G. Where you buy a 5G module for your home, it's like $2,000-$3,000, and you get rewarded in those Helium credits for upholding the network. But as more and more of those get connected, eventually you can just turn off the Verizon stuff, and now you have a connected.
Enough people put the antenna on their home and are sharing that signal, we don't need Verizon anymore. Seriously.
Well,
I wouldn't say business class. I'm not saying they go away.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I'm saying it becomes an option.
There's
And
a
if you're
cheaper,
rural,
freer version available if like your if there's that much connectivity and a neighbor next door has a 5G module installed, and someone can now will it be the fastest internet? Probably not, but it still could be
but
free
it's
internet.
there, it might be
but
super cheap.
you're getting rewarded Helium tokens for upholding the network, and the more and more data packs that are passed by and forth and being validated by your antenna, you get more rewards. So there's a Helium miner in the room next door, and then I have one at my house. And the more devices that are nearby to me, the more I get rewarded. And if I can improve the signal strength, so like at my house, I installed that huge antenna. It's just like a long, tall white pole, and
directional pole.
That Helium miner makes way more money per day than that one makes like 25 cents because it's building like blocks the signal, but versus the one that's on the second story on the roof, that one makes like $3-4 a day. And it's connecting, and there's actually quite a few devices. Actually, Aaron, could you bring up
and I
a
would
website?
think
I want to show this.
Helium's more designed not necessarily for connectivity of like your phones
Open another
and
tab.
like Wi-Fi. It's more designed for IoT devices.
Type in Helium.
So for the moment, yep.
Helium.
As a backup internet coverage map or
Helium network.
All at the
I
bottom.
mean, this to me is impressive.
And
I
then
love
go
what
to
you guys are doing.
tap the first one.
People's Network.
And then scroll down. Keep going. View network coverage.
Check it out.
Holy cow, it's a lot
Almost
more.
1 million hotspots now. I mean, look at what these guys have done. These
So
are people
all
over
of
the
the green is, and zoom into Richmond, to Virginia, and just keep zooming in, keep going up, and you can see how many helium miners are in the Richmond
Oh
area.
yeah, wow.
So, and it's growing, essentially.
Yeah, and 2 years ago it was half of this, right? And so this is people like
Go to
Ryan.
us. Go to us real quick. Like zoom in on short pump. Wow, there's
and then-
10 in that one spot over there in downtown Richmond. So
Yeah, so this is like Scott's edition down
yeah,
here.
so the
right?
more in the area, the more you can connect to, the more rewards you get. So this is a proof of coverage. This is like if you decentralize ISP versus Flux is a decentralized AWS, hosting. So eventually, more and more types of these projects will
and
come
so
up.
what are you doing? Average people investing in hardware, investing in electricity to maintain that hardware, creating these networks and getting rewarded for doing so.
Yeah, so
And
click-
This is a very beautiful
Click on the
world
one
to
with the
my
3,
mind.
or just click on that one.
So my only
So-
skepticism of this is what's the difference between having a 5G cell phone signal versus a 5G helium network?
So with the cell phone, you still need a plan, right? You still, even though you have your phone, you've got to
Okay,
be connected
fair.
to a provider here.
Right.
And
Yeah,
the
that's
next
okay.
gen
Fair
of
enough.
helium.
Well, the next gen of helium.
Helium is the provider. All
Right.
of these folks you're the network. You
Yep.
know, it's so we're building Starlink right here on planet Earth, right? It's not up in the sky. I think this is brilliant. And these are just some examples of what's to come. Last little preach on Flux. End of this year, they're releasing proof of useful work, right? So that's for GPU miners, your video card in your computer, that thing that renders your games and your video. There's going to be another option now where you can dedicate that hardware basically to render video, which I know you
That's
guys
big.
are familiar with.
Yeah,
right?
I've
Very
heard
big.
about this.
I heard
Yep.
one of you mention
One of my buddies has done this for a little while.
yeah,
right, up in
I mean,
Chicago.
my understanding, and I'm not super privy to it all, but like even Pixar struggles to get these films. Like you can have it all mapped out, but the actual rendering to produce the quality with all that animation and get it down takes like incredible amounts of computer
what's the
resources,
movie
so
Avatar?
much time.
Like,
Oh my
and
God.
they don't want to continue to build these massive farms because what are they? There's costs. You gotta
Imagine having After Effects crash.
well, no, so Avatar,
shit.
like every major
Oh.
scene of CGI, they had to wait like 48 hours for
Boom.
a scene to render.
for a scene.
Yeah.
Do that in
And
right,
if it
so-
rendered properly and didn't crash halfway through it.
Exactly. So think about a world now where imagine that same map, but people contributing their video card to help render things faster,
Yep,
and
yep.
then getting rewarded.
So there was
for
also a
that.
concept of this. Way,
This is the time. This is to me. This is the real meat of Web3. But go on.
that was a concept of. I'm not sure you ever heard of folding at home.
Folding at home. The joys of folding. Marie Kondo.
No, folding at home is a college project. I think it was MIT or Harvard. They came out with it for computers to use their processors to fold proteins, to find vaccines and different things for different things, so
Brilliant.
that people wouldn't have to do it. So that's your decentralization. Like this is
Of research,
way,
of medical research.
way
Yeah.
before Web3. So like we're doing GPU mining for validating and financial stuff. Now, can you imagine everyone on a network that is folding proteins and doing
Finding the cure for cancer.
Yeah.
right?
Or,
yeah,
or
like, then we'll ever
helping,
find that,
helping
right.
a
We already found the
lab
cure for cancer. Let's be real.
You'll run their
Like it's already
tests.
out there.
Yeah, there's
like,
no incentive to cure
How's your
cancer.
tinfoil cap
But
of
you
it?
can join different networks. You can have like different parties of people, and you
Sure.
would actually get rewards for that. And it was like bragging rights. You'd just be on top of a leaderboard. But can you imagine getting paid? How many people could actually do that? Like, hey, I've contributed to researching for polio or researching for cancer. We're just folding proteins. If every computer in the world was designed to do that, just not being used and just idle,
Exactly.
every office, every printer, everything that has a microprocessor, could you imagine how much like money could be saved on R&D?
Well,
How much money you can make if you connect all the
how many of
unused
these are
printers
out
in the
there,
world?
right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
how much time does the phone spend just sitting on the
there.
table?
Yeah.
You use it a lot.
Cars.
So you're describing
overnight.
essentially the potential energy of all of the technological components we've
If
created.
everything was
And how
full
they're-
utilization.
they're
or
sitting there unused.
The
If everything was
opportunity to
decentralized,
fully
centralized.
utilize those and get rewarded for it as an individual.
Yep.
And I think that too. Last I'll say on it is, you hear a lot about. We've heard about UBI. You've heard about automation taking people's jobs. How do you replace all that stuff? Are you going to train truckers to become coders? I don't know. Is that realistic? But what if instead people could have their devices and their technology actually rewarding them, paying them something at least while they're sitting idle, or maybe because they've been dedicated to that purpose. And I think Web3 unlocks that potential for the masses, whereas
And yeah,
Web2, you really got to be a geek, right? You got to know your stuff. You got to be a developer, a designer, a server administrator.
Yeah, that one guy
be able to
mining,
willing white papers and all that.
I think it was Ethereum out of a Tesla using the superchargers.
I love it. Like that's brilliant. That's amazing.
You put like a whole rig in his trunk and then plugged it up, and
And it's
eventually,
all-
In
eventually
reality,
he got,
it's so dumb.
oh
But
yeah, but he just did it.
Sorry,
He did it for the clout, I believe,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah,
Tesla blocked him
100%.
from using the superchargers because
yeah,
the
I'm sure
electricity
Elon
cost
hated
was so
that.
cheap.
Yeah, there was probably infringing some IP or copyright, but that type of stuff and this mentality, I think, is the big change that we all should be sharing in the rewards from this data.
Because like every Tesla car is a supercomputer, and just sitting in a parking lot, you only drive it 8% out of the year.
What else could I be doing with it
Right.
to put it to
Oh, yeah.
work
Sure.
for everyone, but then also to reward myself? And I just think, again, we could use electricity, right? Solar panels on homes. I mean, that's decentralizing the
Every
grid.
house should have
If
solar
every
panels.
home in this country had panels, you're generating more power, and you're getting paid
So
a reward for what you put back
from
into
what
the
I've
grid.
read so far is that the consumption of energy during the day isn't the problem; it's sustaining it overnight.
Yes.
So-
yeah,
so
when the
we
sun
have-
don't
Yeah,
shine,
'cause
how
battery
do you
power,
keep the machines
your
running?
battery-
So
you
we
lose so much. Yeah.
overproduce energy to store it, so we can have enough at night.
Yes.
So there's actually a philosophy on that. Is actually there's a curve that we follow, and like we have artificial intelligence. Like I'm not sure if you've had your house visited by Dominion putting on smart meters.
not recently.
So New Kent, they started putting smart meters on houses, so
Okay.
that they can actually check your voltage better than the old dial,
Okay.
right? So
Alright.
they actually have these little 5G antennas on telephone poles now.
Ooh,
So
okay.
now they can actually get better readings on every single house output and input, and be able to better produce energy during the day.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Intelligence, and that's
Mhm.
all data,
That's-
right? They're
that's
getting
Web3
more
as
data.
well.
They're breaking that
AI
data
and ML.
down, trying to make some better decisions with it.
All right.
That's
Oh.
what we're talking about.
This we
Enough-
can go on and on.
Oh
and
yeah,
on and
enough
on.
Yes,
technical
yes.
talk. Let's
So
have some fun.
Let's talk about the fun side
Yeah.
of
Maybe
Web3.
my biggest fear of the metaverse is these things right here.
So
As
this-
someone who gets motion sick and like threw up watching the movie Cloverfield, right, with the
a
camcorder
lot of people.
shaking, right?
A lot of people got sick. for that.
I get concerned about this world.
So
right?
this is the Oculus Quest 2. Aaron, if you want to bring up the screen.
I actually worked for the manufacturer that
let me
made the chips for that.
exit out of this
Hey now.
stupid
Yeah.
thing.
But
The only problem with this is that if you have to wear contacts or glasses, if you have to wear glasses, this is
yeah,
not
that's,
Uncomfortable?
that seems like a
yeah,
problem for me.
very uncomfortable. So let's connect this to
why
the
is
TV.
contacts a problem?
I don't know.
Because sometimes it's still kind of
I could see it just giving me headaches.
Now the idea of using this, like Facebook was promoting, like you can create your own. Is it showing on the TV?
Yeah, we got.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, can you make? Is it widescreen?
It's not widescreen.
It's green.
The idea of this being used as like a workspace, because you can create like a workstation where you can put where your keyboard's at and all that stuff. After 30 minutes of use, my eyes are like dying the second I take them off. So it is fun, but the idea that
We're
someone's
gonna do this all day, every day at your
Abso-
desk is.
absolutely not. It's a nightmare.
Well, I would say after a while they would get better retinas. You know.
Yeah, I'm
Like
assuming
just like
that will-
computer screens, like CRTs back in the day used to hurt your eyes a lot more than LED and LCDs. Like
Yeah.
so.
I think I forget if this is part of Meta, because this was already like pre-installed when I got this.
Entering.
This is like an avatar type experience. And also, if you're prone to seizures, this is obviously not ever going to work for you. As far as moving to the metaverse,
Yeah.
this experience may contain flashing images that may trigger seizures.
Hmm.
That's
but
a
like-
fun warning.
That's a fun warning.
This idea of like this
Yeah.
is
Looking forward to that.
oh
Greg.
look, hey, it's me.
Got a mirror.
It's my attempt to make.
I thought that was
Wow.
Al Borland.
I'm
Really?
even talking and it's moving. Look at that. That's creepy.
That is very creepy.
So I think the idea is you can go to event. Let's see, locations, worlds.
Man, I'm getting nauseous looking at this.
Really?
Really?
How
Wow.
you getting nauseous looking at it on TV?
The screen being right here in
Yeah,
front of me.
fair.
This
Do you play
big.
games? Are you a gamer now? Do you do any games?
James,
No.
he
Okay.
plays
No.
RimWorld. That's about
I
it.
play like management games.
Yeah.
Right? You just
I'm
like,
the same
manage
way.
things. That's a very nice.
I found
very-
another one.
very
I play
Um,
emails, guys. I respond to emails.
Aftermath.
Aftermath.
That's a good one.
I'll check
If
that
you
out.
like RimWorld, you'll like Aftermath. I've been playing that. But I have a friend of mine that actually uses the Oculus, and he actually puts he has a VS Code on it,
So I will
and he
say
puts the whole entire thing, and he just programs on the whole thing.
Coding
So
with a
is this
virtual keyboard?
Ryan?
Yeah, no, not a
this is
virtual
the
keyboard. No,
Oculus
he has the
Rift,
actual
right?
keyboard,
Yeah,
but he
this
has
is- well,
VS
the
Is
Code.
this
Rift is-
owned by?
this
Yeah.
is Oculus
I'm
Rift
like,
was the
not
first
good,
one.
thanks.
Okay.
This is just Oculus Quest 2, which is I guess Facebook's adaptation.
So that's what I was wondering. So this is Meta, this is Meta technology, right?
look,
or
there's
they've
some people.
bought it at
Cut him
some
up with a
point?
lightsaber.
I like
Cut him in
how
half. What
Where
am
the hell's my?
I don't know. Where's
Can
your?
I grab this thing?
Oh no.
Oh,
Oh boy.
bullshit.
Stupid
There's some
metaverse.
things that need to be.
There's some kids over
fixed.
there having Oh, there it is.
Oh,
you
here's
go.
one.
How do I?
Hey.
That one you can.
They're not-
Oh, is this Darth Maul? It goes both ways. Yeah.
Whoa,
This
look
is,
out. Don't-
Look at that.
Don't
Look at that.
delimb
Oh,
yourself
ooh.
here.
How did I?
All right. How do you click the button?
Whoa, whoa.
Whoa.
There it is.
Okay, is this thing
Oh
on?
no, it's on.
Thing's
This ain't on.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Can I get in these spaceships things?
And Ryan, do you know, are those actual other
Yes.
people?
Those are
Or
And
those
they
are
can
just...
hear what we're talking about right now. So we're on a podcast, everybody. There was a game in here where you can like almost like a
Oh man,
kids
that
version
lag
of Call
though.
of Duty.
That's a lag going on
It's like hearing 5-year-olds cuss at you. It's kind of hilarious.
there.
Come here, you shit.
Whoa.
Mom, it was a virus. I swear. I didn't clear my browser history.
So, again, I for this particular game, I can see this from
Can you
like
fly
a
the TIE fighter? Or what
apparently this guy is. How
Wow.
do I get in this thing?
Pew, 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 pew,
But yeah, so just to back it up a step, you're in a specific game for Oculus.
Yeah, this is called Horizons.
This is Horizons.
This is, I would say this is more of like a a jetpack, Boba Fett's jetpack. How do I put it on my
Can you
back?
eat
It's
it?
more of like an introductory thing to like help you
Yeah,
understand how the
get
world
demo.
works.
Hey, you got a thumbs up. Look at you.
Oh, whoa.
Oh god.
This is the
now I'm
lamest
getting dizzy.
jetpack.
Things are
jetpack ever.
happening.
So this is, I would say, from a social standpoint, that's probably like the first thing where most people are going to use this idea of the or metaverse. But the idea for business, I mean, they had a few architectural apps in here where you're building, but even then, it just seemed kind of weird. Is this the Death Star button to blow up the whole planet? I did. Oh, it's this thing. Oh, that's kind of cool.
Pew,
So-
pew, 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 pew,
So
pew,
again,
pew.
I just, this is cool, but again, after 30 minutes of use, like I played Beat Saber the other day. I mean, one, I was tired. Probably should go to the gym more, but my eyes were just dying. Oh, wait, press
And
trigger.
am I
to-
wrong? I mean, it's working. Obviously, you're getting around, but it's still it looks clunky to me, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
not
it's-
still not fluid as a UI as an experience, right? Well,
We all know, like playing Crisis on Ultimate
what are you
still
doing?
crashes computers.
Get away
so.
from me, El Batardo.
El Batardo, get out of here.
So there are some benefits to this. I could see this being used a lot more in real estate when you take like what's
Virtual
the
tour.
3D
Virtual tours.
what's
Yeah.
that one
Tours.
company? Yeah, the virtual tours.
Compass do it? Who's doing the?
There's a company that has that machine.
Oh, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot
the name has
Yeah.
escaped me for some reason.
Yeah.
But there's this company that makes this camera, 3D camera, where you could essentially have like a
Matterport.
Matterport. That's it. You could have like a 3D
Pulled that out of your
walkthrough.
ass.
Yeah, when you do like a 3D walkthrough of a house. So, I mean,
It would make sense for that. I get that application. I get, we were talking before the podcast about, I get the application of if you're an industrial designer and you're collaborating with other industrial designers and you're all sitting around a table. That's like the example they use in, Zuckerberg used in his like metaverse thing. They're all
Okay.
sitting around the table and they're manipulating objects or
There's some
whatever.
Beat Saber.
In the landscape,
But
right? Yeah.
far more clean and crisp than obviously these
Got it.
versions right now. But that's a very niche
Yeah.
job,
definitely.
right? I mean, is the basic office going to get the value? And to your point, right now it's like you kind of got to be convinced why is a video conference right worse
Like-
than us sitting around a table with devices on?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
use the real estate example, right? So you'd have to 3D recreate the home in this world.
Seems like more work.
Yeah, when the real estate agent could just go on FaceTime and be showing it to you. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have the same, I guess, interactivity. You can't explore. You're relying on them. But to me, that's more real and a better representation.
so like here's a business function: design and collaborate in VR, Gravity Sketch.
Change the way that everything is created in the world.
How easy is it to drag
See,
that
watching this
drag
YouTube video would be easier just on a browser.
Right.
Than it would be you
Can
watching
you
it
skip?
on-
Can you
Quick,
skip
I mean,
10
just-
seconds?
And can we just,
How easy it is?
Can you clarify
Oh,
for me?
look at
That guy just used his hands raw. Is that actually possible? I mean, don't you need the
Yeah, you need this.
the
Yeah,
dongles there
No,
to
you need the
interact with
dongles,
stuff?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like there's gonna be a lot less straight lines with this versus
Their designs
a
are
mouse.
substantially
we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining, are there gloves that come out that make this
Minority
more-
Report.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're gonna have to have
that'd
like
be
more.
sweet.
That's what I'm
ability
saying.
there.
To my mind, I still don't know that the UI,
So-
or actually the UX is there.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah, back to like the
To
whole
make
Ready,
it business palatable.
like
Go
the
on.
whole Ready Player One. The obviously it's a fictional movie, but the whole interactivity as far as how easy it is to move and operate is obviously a lot more simpler. Obviously, it's dreamed up and fake, but
Right.
the end user tool needs to be a lot more less clunky and more where all I have to do is put on a some goggles or whatever. But then there's a difference between VR and AR. So this is VR, virtual reality, and then you have AR, which is augmented reality, which is like, think of like Pokemon Go, where that's augmented, where it's like taking your real world and adding in a fake digital something. Avatar.
And that, for the real estate example, I could totally see. You go
That
to
makes
the
a ton of
Diamond
sense.
Diamond District, you're standing
Little
there
call outs or
on Ash Boulevard
Yeah.
going, okay, so what if we wiped this Wawa and I put my stadium right here? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing to me because now I'm seeing the real landscape with
Well,
your digital
or
film
even
overlaid on it.
what's interesting about that is like what does an open house do, right? Like when you walk into an open house and instead of just like you just see the house, it's like you see what the house could be, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, the real estate
they
agent's
have
talking
that.
through.
And Amazon does that. It's like,
This
oh,
janky
see
old
this what it
kitchen?
looks like in your house, and you can already do that. You can cook
Let me
furniture
wipe some
and
new
put it on there.
countertops on
Yeah.
your
take
kitchen.
Yeah.
You take like Apple's glasses, which soon in the next 2 years will probably be out, where that will be more of an augmented reality where
Like
you have your
Google
glasses
Glass.
on and you like you're walking through a
Yeah,
house
Google Glass
and
failed
and a
though, right?
pop-up
Oh, yeah.
shows up, oh,
Hardcore.
this fridge is brand new, or this AC in it is 10 years old, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
where you're walking through and there's pop-ups throughout the house that the realtor has set in place as you're doing a walkthrough, physically or virtually.
I like your print of
yeah,
your goggles.
my
and it was
eyes-
only a few minutes and you had
Yeah.
a print.
Rubbing the head. Oh, this is awesome.
This is great.
So great.
The idea
So much fun.
of this
Ugh.
of being used for business a long term is
Yeah. I mean, it has
this
to really
system-
get a lot better.
We're
it
not there
needs to
yet.
be
We're not there yet.
not
Yeah.
like this light obviously is not helping, just trying to adjust, but it's cool and it's fun for like 30 minutes to an hour maybe, but after that that's it for the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Do you know, are they doing live events with this stuff? Like, could you attend a comedy show on that live?
There is
interesting.
there is a conference app where I know they tried to push this heavy in 2020 especially in 2021, where they weren't doing expos, but they had all the expos on a virtual, where someone had built like an
Virtual,
expo hall
yeah,
with
tables.
like booths and stuff, and then you could either go on your computer or have this, and you can walk around and talk to the trade
Get
shows
off the
people.
stage.
And you can interact with real people like at the booth, but it's just like it's just not the same.
I mean, I could meet Gary V.
I've met Gary V
without being there, or
He's
meet
short
meet Mark
in
Cuban
person.
without being there. Like that the accessibility is gives you more of a lower barrier. I
Well,
don't have the
and
money
sure,
to
sure.
fly out, parking, hotel. I can attend this
But
expo and
That's
get the same,
intriguing. The
like-
idea of being able to experiencing things together, right? Even when you're far apart, right? So if I have a friend in Chicago and California and DC, and us being able to like watch something together, right?
And are you're picking up that ambient noise, like you're hearing
Yeah,
like the
hear-
chatter of
yeah.
people, the clanking
It's
of
a different
dishes.
experience. Yeah, it's a different
Like, it
experience.
feels like you're there.
Than it would be like if you were just, you're in your living room and they're pressing play at the same time.
Yeah, almost like you have to accept like a two-way. Like, hey, James, want to talk? Yes. And now we're speaking versus I'm just roaming around like eavesdropping or whatever.
Yeah.
Picking up
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, this still has a long way to go. It's still come a long way in the past 5 years.
definitely.
You
incredible.
can see
Look
the
at
you can see
size,
the
yeah.
opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
it exists.
Oh,
but, yeah.
what's it?
Hang on.
I think it just got sensitive, but
Uh-oh.
it's all eyeballs or something.
Well, I think we have a fitting meme for today. Aaron, I put
Yeah,
it
if you-
in the chat there.
now it's much more high quality on the.
All right, 1990s. Don't
Yes.
sit too close to the TV.
The faces
Perfect.
are
You'll
so
go
great.
blind.
I can't get the
Perfect.
goofy faces you make with those things on. Are
Yeah.
Oh man.
And
This is
actually-
where we are.
Really, the first version, the cheapest version of this idea was you bought like a headset
And your phone.
and
was-
you put the phone,
Yeah.
because the phone has all the sensors and actuators where it can like almost
Yeah.
follow you. Now it's just a standalone device, but this has to get smaller, much more comfortable, less straining on the eyes, and for really mass user adoption. So the point to where it comes to like a contact where you just put it in and
Yeah.
that.
That is freaky.
I think
That's a
augmented
freaky
reality is
world.
more of the.
That feels Black Mirror-ish right
Yeah,
there. That's,
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's just-
Anytime when you're fusing your physical self with a device, I don't know, that's where I get like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a tech guy, but that's like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
So-
Seen way too many sci-fi movies where this goes wrong.
Well,
Way too many. Yeah.
this podcast could have obviously gone
Oh, we
for
can
a
go
lot
on
longer,
forever.
but we don't want to bore whoever's watching this podcast or listening to
We
it.
already bore them.
The
but
masses
we didn't
already
want to bore
bore
them
them.
more.
The masses
than
that are
more.
tuning in right now.
Waste their
So-
time for an hour and a half.
So this conversation is never going to go away. We can obviously come back to this later as more things develop. But next week's podcast, we're talking somewhat about real estate, but more on the commercial side of stuff. Of when does it make sense to upgrade into an office and that whole aspect, like how we started working from home, and then we had a co-working space we were in, and then we moved into an office. So we're going to talk about the ins and outs of commercial real estate.
Yep.
And maybe even some aspects of development. But Jim, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having
Aaron,
us.
Aaron couldn't be here. He again just had a baby last week, so he's stuck with that at the moment.
Stuck with that.
That's not going away anytime soon. That baby
Another
problem's gonna
20
be
years,
around.
buddy.
yeah,
be dealing with that for a
it's not
bit.
his first kid, but
Well, thank
so-
you for your insights, Jim.
So-
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me,
Definitely.
guys.
Be sure
It was fun.
to hit that like button or smash it, because apparently if you don't smash it, like whatever
And we're
YouTuber
still
says,
in Web 2.0,
Still
so
Web 2.0.
we
We-
still need the likes,
We need
and
the subscribes.
subscribe
Yeah.
for the YouTube algorithm, especially our last podcast talking about, where's Jack Ma. Our last podcast we talked about how to procure product overseas from China and the whole fiasco over
Anywho.
that. So,
Yeah.
anywho's,
Mm.
again,
Not
thanks
to
for
pick at
tuning
old
in.
scabs.
We
Okay.
appreciate you guys. See you next week.
Starting with the most important experience of all.
Sweet Baby Ray's